Hello everyone. Now I want to talk about relapses and setbacks. All things you will experience along the OCD recovery journey. Do not be ashamed, do not beat yourself up, do not be embarrassed to admit or acknowledge or to experience a setback, because they happen. I had many along my journey, many more than I can remember. I had lots and lots and lots. The most frustrating ones were when I was doing well, when I had the glimpses of freedom, when I was having long-term relief. So in regards to maybe I was doing well for a couple of months, rather than just a couple of days, doing well for a couple of months. And then when I'd have a setback, when I'd have a relapse, when I'd have a new big trigger, it felt like, oh shit, I'm back to square one. It's going to feel worse. It's going to feel, often at times I felt even worse than how I felt before, because you've had that glimpse of getting better. Okay, so that's important to remember. Now, a reminder is that when you are so consumed, when you're locked in a new trigger or a new theme or an old fear or whatever it may be, a real event, false memory, whatever it may be, it's going to totally consume you to think that, and it's going to convince you that this moment right now, all the progress that you've ever made, it's all a waste of time. You can forget that, mate. All a waste of time. That's how it's going to feel. Okay? It's going to make you feel that nothing else matters, that all the focus, and you're so fixated on how you feel right now, on this new, latest, current trigger. Okay? That's how it's going to feel. It's going to feel like you're never going to get out of it. It's going to feel like how you feel today, you're going to be stuck forever like that. So maybe you're feeling chronically guilty. Maybe you're feeling chronically anxious. Maybe you're feeling very, very triggered or DPDR. Maybe you're feeling sort of very physical anxiety, so sort of heart palpitations, sweating, all different ways OCD can manifest. Okay, there is no set way. No matter how you feel, having a really rough time of it, a huge setback, how you feel today does not indicate how you're going to feel forever. That's important to remember that, because it's easy. I fell for this trap so many times. I fell for this trick so many times, that how I felt today, how I felt when I was triggered, shit, I'm going to be starting this forever. Oh God, oh God, oh God. And this is why we forget how well we've been doing. Okay, this happened, I first came in, I first found Rob's page in 2019. And, even in 2020, 2021, when I'd been in for a year or 2 years, I was doing well, I was doing really well, made lots of progress, but I still was getting hit with big triggers, big setbacks, okay? And then each setback felt like, oh shit, I just want my old theme back. The newest setback or the newest trigger felt like, well, I'm never going to get out of this. It felt like more real than the previous one, and different to the previous one. I felt like I was the exception. Well, I know I can see how that one was OCD. This one's real. This one is different. This one means something. This one's factual. This one's true. This one requires immediate action. All the path that you're going to go down with OCD suffering. Okay. Now, it's important to remember that. It really, really is, because I get it a lot when, I'm an OCD coach here. So I speak to people who are doing really, really well, great progress. And then they go, Sam, I'm having a setback. And I don't change. I go, as to be expected. It's all part of the journey. I don't go, oh no, oh God. I don't catastrophize. And it's important that you don't catastrophize either, because we internally catastrophize as humans. We do that. And especially with OCD, it exasperates that, exaggerates that. So we go, oh my God, I'm having a setback. No, I can't get out of there. I'm going to be stuck forever, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, let's take a step back. Let's strip it back to basics. All it is you're currently scared of something. Okay, you're scared of something again. OCD has gripped its teeth in, it's dug its claws in, it's found what you're scared of, and it's gone, right, you're not getting out of this one now. This one's going to haunt you forever. It's going to nestle just out of reach of uncertain area where you're not quite sure. Maybe it was a new trigger. Maybe it felt like, oh my God, this one's real. No, this one's different. This one means something now. My previous one, definitely OCD. This one, real. Never going to get out of it. Okay? It's going to haunt me forever. That's how it feels. It felt like my brain was broken, like my brain was trapped. Like, oh no, I could tell I was making progress on the last one, on the last theme, this new theme. I remember when existential OCD first latched for me, I was like, oh my God, I can get over POCD, I can get over relevant false memory OCD, I can get over sensory motor OCD, but existential, no chance. Nothing else matters now. This one's real. You know, that's how it's going to go. I hear it all the time. Okay, but let's strip it back to basics. When you're initially triggered, when that new setback hits, you know, just having one trigger doesn't mean you're having a setback, by the way. But let's say, I normally define a setback if it's been sort of latched and you're feeling chronically anxious, chronically guilty. You'll know sort of the level of anxiety, you'll know. If that latches or lasts or lingers for a couple of days, then I'd say, okay, you're having a setback, you're having a relapse. Let's see what you're scared of. Let's break it down. Okay. And I often, you know, in the moment, it's not changing anything. No immediate change. Don't do any compulsions. That's the difficult part. Because when you're coasting, when you're doing well, it's easy. It's relatively easy not to do compulsions when you're doing well, when you've built the momentum. Yes, it's obviously still difficult, but you know what I'm saying. It's relatively easy to not give in. But the difficult part is when you're triggered. Right? When you feel yourself sliding back into the anxiety and OCD cycle, when you're slipping back, you'll know how that feels. And you're thinking, oh God, here we go again. That feeling of dread, that cloud over your head. Oh shit, here we go again. You know, that feeling. Okay? Now, when that happens, it's so important. When our back's against the wall, it's important to not do that compulsion, not give in to that compulsive cycle. That is the challenge. That is the biggest task. That is the utmost difficult thing to do, because in that moment, you are so desperate for relief. You are so desperate for an escape. You are so desperate to get rid of how you feel. You just want your old self back. You want your old sort of peaceful state back. But that is the trap, okay? Because we're so desperate to feel like how we did before the trigger, we go down the compulsive trap. Okay, how do I get it back? How do I get rid? How do I get it back? No, okay? Let yourself feel anything, regardless of how difficult that is, no matter how tough that is. Let yourself feel anything, okay? Do not make any changes to your day. Do not make any changes to your plan. Do not reschedule anything. Do not cancel anything. Do not make a sudden change, okay? We have to keep going regardless. If it latches, if it lingers, then yes, dispute the irrational belief, look at the core fear, get it down on paper and go, right, where am I going wrong? Go over your musts, go over your shoulds. Life structure is also very important. You know, quite often when I was going through a setback or a relapse, the unhealthy addictive behaviours would come back. Maybe I'd drink more than I'd like. Maybe I'd go back to video games, watching porn, just sort of that quick instant gratification. It easily slips back in when we're triggered, okay? It's very, very important we're not giving back into that, okay? That's the biggest thing that I see. I see that the unhealthy addictive behaviours coming back in for people because they're triggered, they're having a tough time of it. So they go back to that comfort trap. They go back to that stress eating phase, which I went through. You know, as soon as I was triggered, right, I can't think about meals now. I'll go and get a KFC. I'll go and get a McDonald's. I've got to have just sort of sugary, fatty foods for that instant high, that chasing a high, that instant gratification. Okay, it's a very slippery slope. Watching porn, gambling, drinking, smoking, all those unhealthy addictive behaviours that can easily creep back in when we're having a tough time. Okay, so look at life structure. Okay, it's very important in that moment when you're triggered to maintain that healthy life structure. Okay, still getting up out of bed in the morning at like 6 a.m. or a time that you've set for yourself that's worked in the past, that healthy life structure. Obviously, we all live different lives, you all work different times, I get that. But don't like lie into bed an extra hour, extra 2 hours, extra 3 hours, and just sort of lie there with your laptop on the chest, just not getting out of bed. No, that's unhealthy, okay? So get up, whatever time. Every time you have planned, maybe exercise, maybe read a book, maybe spend time with your partner or family. Or, you know, the main thing I'm saying here is do not go back into a lazy cycle, that putting off, that avoidance cycle. It's so easily done. I talk from personal experience here. I speak to hundreds of people a week, a month, coaching with OCD, and I see it all the time. I see unhealthy, addictive, negative, short-term, quick sort of getting quick relief, getting escape behaviours coming back in. It happens all the time. I'm sure as you're watching this video, you're going, yes, I can see how I do that. It's so important, okay? When people ask me, it feels like the $1 million question. They say, Sam, I'm triggered. What do I do? And I say, look, do nothing. Main thing, do not do the compulsion. Do not do compulsions, but do nothing. Do not change anything. Do not resist anything. Surrender to any feeling. Do not try and control anything. Do not change anything. Okay? If it lingers, if it lashes for a few days, get the beliefs down on paper and rip them apart. Okay? So important to remember. I'll go through some of my biggest triggers and my biggest setbacks as I was going through the journey. Now, I remember one that really stands out to me is this one. I was probably, I think this was during COVID. So it's probably 2020. So I was a year into the journey and I was doing really, really well. I was read all the books by then. I was cutting compulsions. I was disputing on paper. I really built the momentum. Life structure looked good. Well, it was during COVID, so as much as it could, you know, as much as I could do. You know, I was working from home at the time, but I was still exercising. I was exercising lots, actually, because, you know, you could go for runs and go for big walks. I was doing that. So I remember being out on a run, actually. And I actually remember it really well. It stands out for some reason. It was about July. I don't know which day in July, but July 2020. And I remember I read somewhere in a book, an Albert Ellis book, that he didn't, and this triggers a lot of people, me saying this now, but you hear this a lot, he didn't like dealing with OCD sufferers. He found them very whiny. He found them very repetitive. He found them very reassurancy, saying the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And I can relate to that. I have OCD myself. I was like that. I deal with hundreds of people with OCD. I know how it goes. So I get what he meant. Remember, Albert Ellis didn't have OCD. He suffered with sort of social anxiety, physical anxiety symptoms, and all different life ailments, but he didn't have OCD as such. But still, his tools work for OCD, hence why we talk about what we do, hence why we do rational thinking, REBT. So we've adapted the principles and applied them to OCD, okay? So he said that he didn't like working with OCD for those reasons, okay? And I thought at the time, and I catastrophized at the time, I went from 0 to 100 during a run. I was like, oh shit. If he says that, oh shit, then I am going to be stuck forever. Because if his tools, if Albert Ellis' tools, if his work does not work for OCD, oh shit, I'm doomed. Excuse my language, I'm fucked. I'm stuck forever. I'm going to be stuck in the anxiety, the chronic guilt, the panic sensation for the rest of my life. What am I going to do? And I remember at the time, I actually stopped running because it just suddenly hit me for 6. I felt so overwhelmed. Oh my God, that's how it felt. And I stopped, and then, you know, panicking like crazy, and it took me off my feet. And I thought, shit, what am I going to do? And I remember trying to get an answer in my head. I thought, well, you know, his work before is going to help again. I was scrambling. I was frantically looking for an answer. I was running around like a headless chicken internally in my mind, looking for a headless answer, looking for an answer. Okay? Now that was difficult because I was convinced that I was going to be stuck forever. Convinced, absolutely convinced. No one could tell me otherwise in that moment that I wasn't going to be stuck forever. What I had to do was this. Let all that doubt be there. Let the anxiety be there. Let the guilt be there. Let the panic be there. Okay, let any feeling, any sensation, anything be there. Okay? Now, I didn't dispute immediately, but, and this is another thing, by the way, I'll go back to this. Acknowledging you're having a setback is very important. Of course, not writing in the groups every 2 minutes, I'm having a setback, I said no. But in the moment I said, look, I'm having a setback, and then obviously I had help from people in the WhatsApp groups when I was suffering. Rob helped massively. So it's important to reach out in that moment and not to just suffer alone. Yes, balance, you know, you don't have to talk all the time when you're having a rough time because that becomes compulsive. But if you're having a big setback, then it's important to reach out and ask for help. Maybe book a one-to-one call, maybe reach out in the groups, webinars, whatever, okay? It's important to do that. But what I had to do was let anything play out, any feeling, and I left that for a couple of days because I knew if I jumped in and tried to figure it all out, you know, internally it felt like it was automatic, that's how it felt. But I knew, okay, when the advice from other people and Rob, let that play out and leave it a couple of days. So I did leave it a couple of days, and then over time I got it down on paper. I carried on with the orbitalist tools, the disputing techniques, reading the books. I carried on doing that after a couple of days. And my brain, the OCD, was screaming at me saying, don't do it, it's not going to work, it's not going to work, Sam, it's not going to work, don't do it. You know, doubting everything that I've ever learned, doubting all the progress that I've ever made, doubting all the tools that I've picked up through the journey. All a waste of time, all down the toilet. You're lying to yourself. You're bullshitting yourself. You didn't make any progress. That's how it feels, okay? So I had to let that doubt scream, okay? I had to let it do that. Whilst keep chipping away. Whilst keep focusing on life structure, okay? Keep getting up in the morning. Keep going for a walk. Keep reading books. And keep exercising. Keep eating well. Keep into a good routine. Not a rigid routine, but a healthy routine. Keep socialising as much as I could during COVID. I remember being on FaceTime and out to my friends and things like that. So to keep that up and not just go into an unhealthy cycle, not play a load of video games again, not go down to a porn cycle again, constantly watching porn for relief. No, I had to not do that. Okay? I had to pretend, and I know this sounds contradicting, but you have to pretend that it's not happening in regards to, regardless of how you feel, carry on with life anyway. As if it didn't happen, carry on with life anyway. Okay, very, very important. So, and over time that faded. But in that moment when I was triggered, fuck, if you asked me at that time, I'd probably been close to tears. Maybe I was in tears. I was thinking, no, all the time that I've spent on this, all the effort, all the time, it's all waste of time. I'm going to be stuck forever, blah, 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 blah. Completely catastrophization at its finest. But I was a big catastrophizer. Okay, we all are. Okay, and that moment really stands out for me because that was a huge turning point. Because I realised, you know, looking back now, that was probably one of my biggest setbacks. Because that lasted for a good couple of weeks, a good month, I'd say, at least, just feeling that on edge 24/7. Everywhere I just felt panic. I was like, oh, I'm going to be stuck at this forever. And, you know, it was hard not to do the compulsions in those moments. And I probably did slip up. Looking back now, I probably did slip up. But I did my best and got through it eventually. And, you know, that was the biggest learning point. Okay, if I did do the compulsion, okay, focus on the next day. Very, very tough. Have compassion is very, very tough. We can't be too lenient because you'd be just doing compulsions all day long. No, I had to be strict, but not drill sergeant strict where I completely beat myself up. No. If I slipped up, did a compulsion, got back on my bike, carried on going. Okay. So important to remember. God, it's been 17 minutes already. Now I'm going to leave it there. Okay, the bottom line of this video is this. If you're having a relapse, having a setback, do not do compulsions. Do not change anything. Do not do any immediate change. No immediate action. Okay? Focus on life structure. Do not do the compulsions. Okay? Keep up with life regardless. Keep up with the habits. And you go into work, a good, healthy routine. Keep that up regardless of how you feel. Do not give in to the compulsions. And if it lingers and latches for a couple of days, let's go back to basics. Pen to paper. Okay, looking at what you're scared of, looking at your musts, your shoulds, your rigid demands, your inflexible way of thinking. Okay, seeing when that's going wrong and just keep pushing through with the long-term aim of recovery in mind. Okay, not chasing it, but knowing, yes, if I get through this today, then this is going to help me in the long term. So important.